Good morning and many blessings. I'm Rabbi Daniel, and welcome this morning. First and foremost, before we get into this, if you appreciate the video and what I put out, please go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and share the video. Okay, every time you do that, it gets out to more people. This is the place where me as the rabbi, I take a scripture and I apply scriptures to some of these things we're dealing with in modern life. It might be talking about some finance, it might be talking about some history, it might be just talking about religion and of course politics even, because everything's wrapped up, and it's believed that the scripture really does have the answer for everything as long as you search in there and you look for it. So today, the scripture for today is Deuteronomy 19:15, okay? And Deuteronomy 19:15 says, "A single witness shall not stand up against any man for any iniquity or for any error," okay? "Regarding any sin that he may commit. According to 2 witnesses or according to 3 witnesses shall the matter be confirmed." And it's very important. The scripture talks about an extension here. The next verse says a penalty basically for somebody that makes false statements or false witness. So it says, continues, "If a false witness stands against a man to speak up spuriously against him, then the 2 men and those who have the grievance shall stand before God, before the priests and the judges who will be in those days. And the judges shall inquire thoroughly, and behold, if the testimony was false testimony, he spoke up falsely against his fellow, you shall do to him as he conspired to do to his fellow, and you shall destroy the evil from your midst. And those who remain shall hearken in fear, and they shall not continue again to do such an evil thing in your midst." Okay, so why is this relevant today? Why is this important today? So one of the reasons I do these lessons is to teach people so they can understand what's going on around them, okay? And today, it is the day after Thanksgiving, okay? And it's the year 2020, the day after Thanksgiving, okay? And although the news media, which is biased, the news media, which is fake, the news media, which is not doing its job, it's not reporting on all the issues and current problems that are happening right now, they make declarations that Joe Biden won the presidency. Well, that's not how it works. There's actually a few important dates before that can actually happen. And one, you got the election night, okay? Most of the time, somebody concedes at the end of the night, you move on. Everything is kind of like a rubber stamp through the system, how it's all set up. But if there's disagreement, it goes all the way up until December 8th for the state to certify, whatever state it is, to certify their results so they can send the electors over to the Electoral College, which meets on December 14th. Now, if the Electoral College cannot make the 270 on either person at that time, which you can't if you have, issues and problems pending, then it will get pushed to the courts, to the Congress. And they do a contingency election, which takes place, it's important, the Congress meets on January 8th. So it's, there's issues all the way along. There's remedies for issues, there's problems, there's lawsuits, and contested elections. And so this was a contested election. The media doesn't want to talk about it, but as it stands today, with the states that are not in being contested, you got 6 states being contested, many lawsuits by not only the Trump campaign, but also by other concerned citizens. The legislatures of these states are getting involved. Recounts like crazy. Okay, all this is important. All this tells us what's going on. Okay, so it's important to know the processes. Because the media doesn't report on things, you're not going to know. And my fear is because the media doesn't report on things, once they are forced to report on things, there's going to be riots in the street because people are going to be perceived that, oh, Joe Biden won, when in actuality, Right now in the count, Donald Trump has 232 solid, and Joe Biden only has 212 solid, because you take the 6 states out of the numbers. So who is winning right now? And who's winning in the court of law, which is important. The media is trying to win in the court of public opinion, but the court of public opinion doesn't actually elect the president. It's the court of, it's a legislative process, and the legislatures are involved, okay? And there's a reason why. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But to understand the whole framework of everything, okay, we got to understand what it goes back to. So the American system is basically a combination of 3 great systems that came before. Okay, so we have one is democracy from Greece, okay? And everybody likes the concept of democracy. I get a vote, everybody gets a vote. We should all be happy, right? However, the founding fathers saw that there's a problem with this. And the problem is mob rule. And mob rule can be destructive to society, okay? Because it bends at emotions and feelings, and, so that's when they looked upon another great society. The second great society they looked upon was, they took the concept of republic from Rome, which is in order to protect against that democracy when it goes astray. It is said by, I think it was Jefferson, I could be mistaken, but it says democracy is 2 wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner. That's pretty scary if you think about that. So the reason why we have an electoral college is these are all checks and balances in the system to protect the system. So we have democracy, and then we have a republic, and we put those together. And we put those together, we don't actually have a democracy, a pure democracy. We have a democratic style of a republic. Really, it's impossible to have a pure democracy, because then everybody votes on everything. Everybody can't just jump and go to Washington, and how would you vote on everything? I mean, it would get ridiculously crazy, money spent. I mean, you'd be running campaigns 24/7 in the political world. It'd be crazy. So it's a republic where we send elected officials. We vote on these few elected officials in these positions, maybe some very important issues on the state level, local level, but for the most part, it's these elected officials of the republic through a democratic process. Okay, so that establishes the legislature. And then the legislature and the presidency, they appoint, depending on how it's done, judges are appointed, and etc. So what's left? I said there was 3 great societies that they made the American system upon. Now here's where this is where it gets really interesting and really good, and I love this part. They make the laws on, there's 2 concepts to law, and it's called the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. Well, where does this come from? This actually comes from Israel. Israelites, this is where it comes from. Law is based off the conceptions of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. Moses is regarded as the greatest lawgiver. And even in the monuments in D.C., you have, in Congress, you have this room where you have all of these great lawgivers up frescoes up on the wall, all these great lawgivers. And the ones on this direction are looking that way, and the ones on this direction are looking that way, to a central figure, and it's the fresco of Moses, the great lawgiver. So this is very important, and we put all 3 of those together. Now, how does this play into today's? Because you'll hear the media say, there's no evidence of fraud. There's no evidence of fraud. Show us the evidence. Show us the evidence. Okay? And then you'll get people like Giuliani say, well, the evidence is the affidavits. Eyewitnesses. Eyewitnesses are extremely important. And so now we wrap this thing together. You see what I'm saying? Okay. You can't just have one person. One person can't seal a fate on anything. So you have to have multiple witnesses. So when you have multiple witnesses, we have hundreds of witnesses in each state that testified to the fact that wrongdoing and fraud took place, which means the elections are fraudulent, which means now you have court cases, now you have certain recounts, now the legislators are going to have to get involved, which means that now it's not going to be able to proceed all the way on schedule, which means you might not have the electoral college happen as planned, which means then it goes into a contingent elections in the Congress. Goes to contingent elections in the Congress, then of course at that point, Trump will win because each state, it's not by representative of that anymore. So California doesn't have 55 votes in that scenario. In that scenario, California only has 1 vote. Texas only has 1 vote. Florida 1 vote. But at the same time, Alaska and Montana and Rhode Island have 1 vote. Everybody has 1 vote. And in that case, Trump will win. If it goes before the Supreme Court, any of these issues, well, there's a conservative majority and Trump stands to win. Most of these places, the legislatures in these states are Republican held, so stand to win. So in all aspects now going forward, everything's pretty much in Trump's column. So I think Trump might win. That's, unless you get some judges or politicians, legislators along the way that don't want to do their job. And if that's the case, they need to consider what they're doing there to begin with. And the people that put them in there need to consider why those people. For example, in Georgia, if you got Raffensperger and you got Kemp, and they're going again, and they're Republicans, and they ran on Republican tickets, and they're going against the will of the party people that vote them into power. They got to be careful with that, because if they don't tread lightly on whatever it may be, then they might not get reelected. So this is politics, and this is where it gets kind of dicey. But I just wanted to put it there that this is what's going on. Evidence has been given. Evidence are affidavits. Affidavits are sworn statements under oath of penalty of perjury, which means that they try to do harm, right, to the president over the candidacy. If they do that harm, they try to do that harm, and they're lying, then they can get punished themselves. It's not exactly the same punishment, but a penalty of perjury carries a serious charge against it. It's like, I believe it's a felony charge, a penalty of perjury. You can go to prison over perjury. So perjury is extremely, and that goes right here. Right back to this, because remember when I read it, the scripture, it said, whatever he devised against the person, if the person's lying, whatever he lies about the other person, that can come back on him if it's proven to be false. And that's why you have penalty of perjury on the affidavit. We have an affidavit, penalty of perjury. You get in trouble. So you got to be honest. They got to be honest. Well, hundreds and hundreds of people across 6 states. I don't think hundreds and hundreds of people across 6 states would risk their going to jail over this. It's ridiculous. Why would they risk going to jail over this? Why would they, this is how the rule of law works. They gave a statement under penalty of perjury. They are eyewitness evidence. And eyewitness evidence is like the strongest type of evidence you can actually have. So an affidavit and having that eyewitness in court is the strongest you can have. Having the affidavit is like the second strongest piece of evidence you can have. The media tries to make you think that the smoking gun is the biggest piece of evidence. So show us smoking guns. Well, actually, that's not the biggest piece of evidence. And think about that for a second. If I had a smoking gun, all it says is that there's a smoking gun. It says what was the means of the crime, but what was used in the crime, and not who did the crime. You can get into forensics and possibly you might be able to find, but what if the person was wearing gloves, and you would never know, okay? The eyewitness is the one that identifies the criminal. And the eyewitness can identify the criminal, then action can be taken. So this is very important. And so I just thought that when you hear the media constantly saying there's no evidence, I wanted to give up this lesson so you can hear that and you say, wait a second, there is evidence. There's lots of evidence. There is the evidence of the eyewitness, which is the strongest, and there's hundreds of eyewitnesses. in addition to that, there is tampered with equipment. And this is evidence in a different form, but it's still evidence. So, and as we sit today, before Thanksgiving, 2 lawsuits went forward, one in Michigan by Sidney Powell, and then one in Georgia. And the one in Georgia is, both of these, they're suing the governor and the Secretary of State for their actions. And it's pretty big allegations, but you can find these filings online. Mark Levin puts them up, and Epoch Times puts them up. So if you want to look for them, read. And one of the Georgia was I think Georgia was 104 pages. I read through it. Very interesting stuff, and a lot of evidence in there. And then at the same time, on the other side, the Michigan one's like 95 pages. So, don't worry about it. It seems long, but, you got double spacing in there, which cuts down half of that filing anyways. But then you can skim through some, because it's very templated wording to get down to the main meat of everything. But yeah, there are serious allegations, and I don't see how any of these 6 states will be able to validate, to certify a true and legitimate claim. And I do believe it's going to be pushed into Congress. But anyways, that's besides the point. If you like to learn history, or you like to learn scripture, or you like to see how everything comes together in a modern sense, this is the place to be. And I'll keep on putting out videos as long as people like them and subscribe. And I'm trying to teach, I'm trying to let people have just a different perspective or understanding that they might not have about how things work. And lately it's been about politics, of course, because we have a political crisis going on in our country. But also sometimes it will be about religion, sometimes it will be about history, and how all these things connect to the current. Sometimes it'll even be about finance. My main job, I'm an auditor, I'm an accountant, and so I have a lot to offer about finance. So if you want to look at some of those videos, you can go through what I put out previously. Some will be on religion, some will be on history, some will be on politics, some will be on finance. But that's what I try to deal with. I try to show scripture, and I one of the biggest reasons that I do it this way is because morals and ethics are so important to all of these items. So with that, I pray that you have a blessed weekend. It's the second, it's the day right after Thanksgiving. For many, it's a 4-day weekend, so it's the second of that 4 days. So enjoy your weekend, enjoy your time. And tomorrow will be Shabbat, the Jewish Sabbath. So take the day of rest. If that's your day, take a rest. And if not, it's on Sunday, then take your day of rest on Sunday. Enjoy your time with your family and be blessed. So that's what I'm praying and hoping for everybody out there listening to me. Be blessed. And I pray you just hit the like, subscribe, share, and let other people learn also. All right. Have a blessed day.